Thank you so much for attending this panel. We think that it is going to be incredibly informative. My name is Anitra Androh. I'm a commercial real estate attorney at Polsinelli Law Firm. I'm resident in our DC office, and I have the pleasure of sitting on this panel, well, I should say of moderating this panel with Mr. Eddie Benoit and also Mr. Roosevelt Dene. I would like to start by allowing each of my panelists to introduce themselves and give a little background on them. I'm going to start with Mr. Eddie.
Good morning. It's great to be here in Medellin, Colombia. I'm here from Atlanta. My name is Eddie Benoit. I'm the founder and CEO of the Benoit Group. We're headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. We're a commercial real estate development company that focuses on public-private partnerships that deal with multifamily and mixed-use developments throughout the Southeast and in the Midwest. And a lot of our deals are done where they focus on affordable housing, deal with gentrification, deal with transformative development in distressed areas throughout urban and suburban markets. And so we partner a lot with public housing authorities, development authorities, and other agencies that are trying to stimulate affordable housing, throughout the country.
Thank you very much. Mr. Roosevelt?
Good morning. Roosevelt Dene, Special Counsel at Murphy Sherlin Wilks, a boutique, fully integrated boutique commercial real estate firm. First, I'd like to say thank you to both my fellow panelists and moderator. To be able to sit next to two titans in real estate is an honor. And thank you, because next year I get to raise my fees because I'm sitting next to y'all today. So thank you.
Get that money.
Roosevelt Dene, primarily specializing in real estate with a focus on land use and development. So in my representative capacity, also represent a number of financial institutions, private investors, and work very closely with municipalities. Recently closed a transaction where my client is going to be building 85 acres of workforce housing with TD Jakes, and that same client just joint ventured with Robert Smith to pledge $100 million to develop real estate on HBCU campuses. So, pleasure to be here. Looking forward to this discussion.
Well, thank you. As I'm sitting here with two amazing gentlemen, I think the thing that is bringing us here and that we really want to talk about in depth is the affordable housing crisis that we have in the United States of America. I know that there's a constant discussions about the lack of not only affordable housing with a capital A, and we'll delve into A, affordable and capital, but also workforce housing that Roosevelt just talked about. We have so many people that work 2 and 3 jobs and are still struggling to find clean, decent housing that they can afford. And so addressing not only the affordable housing, but workforce housing is something that each city needs to tackle, along with phenomenal developers like Eddie, but also we need folks like Roosevelt to help navigate those paths forward to get to the bottom line, which is putting more affordable housing units out on the street. So bearing that concept in mind, the first question I would like to ask is, so both of you have extensive experience in building affordable housing. What are some of your greatest challenges, and what are the current opportunities that you see?
That's a loaded question. We could spend all day talking about this, but I'll just touch on a couple of things. As it relates to affordable housing, you have the big A, and as far as those who fall under very low to low income, and then you have the small A, and that small A is bifurcated between those who fall between that 80% to 140% area median income that still need affordably priced housing for them to enjoy that live-work environment. And then there's another faction that people are not focusing on. It's those who are 55 to about 75 that are still working and that are seniors. A person like myself falling in that category really soon. And so that are still working, they still want to come to work. They don't want to work virtually, and they're really part of that workforce, and nobody's really paying attention to them. They need affordable housing too. It's not just the young, families or young professionals coming out of college. And so as it relates to the challenges, I'll highlight you. Everybody hears it just a high demand for housing, but there's not enough supply. And that crisis is throughout the country, every major city, whether it's a primary, secondary, tertiary city. The issues related to insurance, property and liability insurance is really crippling the nation as far as the rising cost of insurance, whether it's for residential housing, for home ownership, or whether it's for multifamily with developers like myself, where I can just wake up and when we deal with insurance renewals every May of the year, and you kind of cringe. It's worse than tax day because you don't know what you're going to get. At least with taxes, you're like, okay, it's around about what I may have to pay, to the federal government. And also there could be a payment plan if you can't pay it all. Here with insurance, no, you're paying it up front. And basically, we've seen some of our portfolios, when I say some of us, my peers in the industry, where our insurance premiums almost doubled overnight. And so that may not mean much to you when you're looking at 1 unit, 4-unit quadruplex, but when you're talking about thousands of units, and whereby that cost could easily be anywhere between $3 to $5, $6 million of cash flow that just vanished. You cannot replace that. It's gone, and you're not getting any better benefit than the day before you renewed that insurance policy. Okay, and as a matter of fact, the more claims you have, the less likelihood they want to renew your policy. All right, or else you're also going to be in a situation where you have higher deductibles. So that is a critical issue, insurance, plus also taxes. A lot of these neighborhoods that are going through transformation, those who are legacy residents there, they're having that decide to stay overnight. Their taxes have doubled or tripled. Okay, especially if they're not at the age where they're senior citizen enough where they're not paying for taxes. That forces them to sell their properties because they can't maintain the insurance, they can't maintain the taxes. But from an affordable housing standpoint, from a commercial lens, the issue with taxes is real for us too, because a lot of these properties that we're developing where there's a huge need for affordable housing are in areas where, even though we've been able to overcome NIMBYism, well, now these assessors are taxing these properties that are limited based on the rent that they can receive at the same value of market rate luxury apartment developments, which are causing major hemorrhaging of cash flows, where now developers have their properties that are upside down. So those would be the two major challenges that I see in the market that actually are like at the top of my list that I wake up with dealing as it relates to our portfolio. I'll let Roosevelt talk about his.
In terms of a challenge, my challenge is going to be financing. At the end of the day, affordable housing transactions are often complex and complicated financial stacks, which beg you to tap into different pools of money that may not necessarily be on the same timeline. So you may have your banker who's ready to go, but then you have municipal and or state funding available, and you need to coordinate all those funding sources. So financing is a challenge. And then two, dovetailing off of Mr. Benoit, the bureaucratic process. Again, when you're dealing with financing, interest rates are important. But the municipal and state process doesn't necessarily always respect the financial and banking process. So really being tuned in and dialed into your financing sources, the timelines, and having all of that line up such that when you do finally get a municipality or a state prepared to transact with you, your bag of money is ready for the deal. So those are two challenges.
Well, gee, how do we keep doing this? I mean, there's got to be some opportunities out there, right? And we have a charge. We're all very dedicated to continuing to create affordable housing and to address that demand. So we had a very glum picture, but you know what? We continue to fight. What are the opportunities that you see despite all of these challenges?
Yeah, it sounds like a glum picture, but there's always going to be a problem, an issue to contend with when you're in this industry. I mean, it's just how it is. As it relates to opportunities, there are many. I mean, it's a list. But I think about first is the fact that you could actually really transform neighborhoods. There are some neighborhoods that are extremely distressed, that are in great locations, that actually you are begging for the opportunity for a deconcentration of the poverty level from an income standpoint, and to really have access to some of the basic needs, such as just grocery stores, okay, decent schools, decent housing, decent parks, okay, for these kids where we can focus on the early childhood development and exposure. And that, even though it's very difficult at times to work with municipalities from a developer standpoint, I would say it hasn't been that experience for me all the time. Coming from Atlanta with my mayor, Andre Dickens, and I've worked with other great mayors too, throughout the Southeast, and Birmingham, and Montgomery, other places, and they have housing at the top of their agenda. And they've been able to really work with developers like myself to come up with a plan that actually supports their vision. You have a lot of these empty promises from different politicians because it really helps, throughout the election process. But then, they go 4 years and nothing happens. That's not what you're seeing with a lot of mayors out here are really working hard. They're really tapping in with developers and figuring out how they can engage their administration, but also other agencies that are there that can provide different types of soft financing to bridge the financial gap on these projects so these deals can actually come to fruition. And so it's important really to highlight that. It's easy to say, government sometimes in the way, but when you do have officials and politicians that understand where the cog in the wheel is and they're willing to do something about it, that creates the opportunity to change these neighborhoods and create mixed-use development and stimulate, be catalytic towards other developers to come in where they're no longer afraid or having to deal with the barriers of entry.
And so, Roosevelt, I'm going to ask you the same question because I know you deal with a lot of municipalities on a regular basis, and some of the things that, or the programs that cities and municipalities have done is they've got tax abatements or pilots, to offset some of the real estate taxes, which is an issue that Eddie just raised, as well as, they've created these housing production trust funds to put a pool of money, land banks, et cetera, et cetera. What other tools could the cities and municipalities be doing to assist developers to create those opportunities?
So affordable housing is fertile ground because it's an agnostic topic. White folks need affordable housing, black folks need affordable housing. So it's something that if these mayors tap into the infinite potential of themselves as individuals to get creative, we can address the issue. With respect to creative solutions, in our great city of Newark, New Jersey, Mayor Ras Baraka recently championed a program where Section 8 housing vouchers can be used to serve as down payments for home ownership. So it's a comprehensive comprehensive program where city-owned lots are made available to local developers or developers of ability. The lots get developed in an affordable manner. The individuals who are given first right of refusal are from the community, oftentimes pulling themselves up from the lower ranks of socioeconomic status through the use of Section 8 vouchers, which serve as down payments for home ownership. So that's a mayor who's tapped into his advisors, who has thought about this project and really pulled all of the resources and all of the tools available to him to try to put something out that's going to help his community. So again, in terms of opportunity, it's really mayors taking a step back to realize, mayors, council folks, state legislatures, governors, taking the time to really think about this issue as one that touches everyone. And because it touches everyone, very aggressive solutions should be put forth because there will likely be very limited pushback.
That was a lot. We have a lot of work to do, but I think that we can get it done. Oh, okay, great. Oh, thank you. So if I could just sorry about that. If I could just piggyback on that last question, as we talk about what cities can do to facilitate affordable housing and spur the development, what do you see as what has been one of the greatest opportunities that was provided to you through one of your public-private partnerships? Sorry, that's a tongue twister. I'm just going to say P3, but I did not want to assume that everyone in the room knew what P3 was, because I have a habit of doing that, because we live and breathe this. But what has been one of the greatest, I would say, one of the greatest opportunities that arose as a result of a P3 project for you?
The one I can highlight right now is probably our flagship project, and it was through a competitive RFQ in Atlanta. We partnered with the Atlanta Housing Authority, for the redevelopment of a 74-acre old public housing development in the northwest side of Atlanta. It's called the Bowen Homes, and that site was demolished back in 2010, and had been sitting vacant for a long time. Interestingly enough, our company, the Benoit Group, we developed a property in 2016 right across the street. This has been a blighted area. People ask me, why are you going into this area? I said, look, this is the next area that's going to develop in Atlanta. It's just a great location. It makes sense, but I know it's very transitional right now. And so we developed 160 units of senior housing, independent senior living, for 62 and older. And we actually partnered with the Housing Authority on that deal. Never thought that we would compete for the deal across the street. Figured that it would probably be definitely a mixed-use development. And so we competed for the Choice Neighborhood Implementation Grant after we were awarded this project with our partners out of St. Louis, McCormick Barron. And we were awarded $40 million by the federal government for this Choice Neighborhood Implementation Grant. The key word here is neighborhood. It expands beyond the 74 acres. The impact beyond the project itself, the footprint of the project, is extremely critical. So we get to transform not only the 74 acres that's just been sitting there, but also transform the neighborhood around it. All right? So that $40 million from the federal government unlocked another $88 million of grants between the city, the development authority, and the housing authority. So you're looking at, collectively $128 million on a project that will be a 10-year project, which will definitely clip $1 billion in development. It's a mixed-use development that will have more units of affordable units than it had before it was demolished, okay? Plus, there'll be market rate units. There'll be single-family home ownership on the site. There'll be all kinds of commercial development there, where prior to, it was just one of the worst public housing developments in the state of Georgia. So to be part of a project like that, to lead it locally, to have the partners that we have out of St. Louis, to work on a project of this scale, this magnitude, of what Atlanta Housing is the largest of its kind in the state of Georgia. and for us to, be part of that. I am extremely grateful, looking forward to it. We broke ground on the first project as of the end of this year in December, and we'll continue to break ground on other buildings until it's done. Hopefully it doesn't go too far past $1 billion, because that means we're probably gonna lose money from our pro formas. So, but it is great, to actually be part of this project.
Well, that sounds absolutely amazing, and kudos to you for stepping out there and not only creating just the affordable housing, but the community that you're going to have ownership on the site, because home ownership is also critically important, as well as the commercial and the retail aspect. Roosevelt, I'm going to ask you as well to talk about one of the projects one of your clients have talked about, or I'm sorry, has developed and or is in the works, because part of the entire process of building a community is more than just the housing, and that's what Mr. Eddie just talked about. So if you could expand on it, that would be great.
Sure. So at the top of our session, we talked about the Steinbridge Group and the 2 transactions currently in process, one being an 85-acre transaction with Bishop T.D. Jakes in Texas, and then the other being the recently announced $100 million to develop HBCU campuses across the country. So those are 2 projects. But what I'd really like to harp on is, I look at myself as a social impact development attorney, and what that means is it's not necessarily just putting the bricks and sticks up, but it's having the community informed, and the community is part of the process. And P3 gives you that opportunity often, because the developer needs to come to the table and work with the municipality. So that's the opportunity for the community, to the extent it's informed and organized, to really participate in the process. We'll take the great city of Newark, New Jersey as an example. Being a city, you have a lot of asphalt, you have a lot of concrete, not a lot of trees. So it's an opportunity to cure some of these heat deserts, to have discussions with developers about planting trees, to have development that's sustainably put in the ground, such that the communities can exist there in perpetuity, or for as long as possible, so the developer can do good and do well at the same time. It's an opportunity for the community to talk about the food deserts, right, that presently exist with the bodegas and other low-quality food. So as these developers are planning communities, planning projects, having this information made available to them allows them to more thoughtfully put forth a project that, A, the community can embrace, B, pencils, and then C, for the mayors and other officials, allows them to go to more ribbon cuttings and say they've put affordable housing stock in circulation.
I'm going to pick on you a little bit. You said your social impact. So one of the things that you said struck me as part of a community, and we always talk about food deserts, because, the food desert, the quality of the food, when you go to bodegas or the corner store, they don't have fruits and vegetables, right? I remember speaking with one of my clients who was heartbroken as he was building in a community, and they had the green meat bin. Have you all heard of that? Where basically it's rotten meat because it's green, right? And you cut around it, and of course it's only sold in Black and brown communities. But his aspiration was to eliminate these green meat bins in the community, right? And so as you think about now we're going to talk about health, right? Because we do what we eat, our food, our ability to exercise, all of this kind of triggers all of the health related issues that are prevalent in our community. So if I could pick on you for a little bit, and if you could talk about some of the impacts that the projects your clients are working on that are also addressing not only just the food desert, but also the health related aspect of a community.
So again, with, being from Newark and knowing the zoning code pretty well, some of these issues you're talking about are codified as needing to be addressed. So the number of trees that are planted, in your zoning and land use and or historical commission process, there's often a robust discussion about amenities offered in these buildings. Do you have a gymnasium? Do you have a workout room? Do you have a yoga room? Do you have an area of the building, whether it be on a rooftop, courtyard area, that's outdoor area, right? Fresh air, vitamin D. So through the zoning process, through the negotiation process with respect to incentives offered by the municipality and or approvals on your project, we're often able to identify and address some of these issues that you're highlighting.
I saw you nod. You knew all about the green meat bin. Have you had to address that on any of your projects in particular?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Thank God. No.
Well, I just saw you nodded, so I had to ask. I do want to make sure.
Throw something in the mix right there.
Sure.
Roosevelt and I do a lot of business together, and I'm hoping to do some business with Eddie soon. But I think we forget the role of the government that plays in that question that you're talking about there when it comes to getting green roofs and bringing in retailers that you might like, right? So we talk about that desert. There may be a community benefits program that a community may put together that you need from that government to go out and find that, you know, whether it's a Aldi or Pathmark, you know, what region of the country you're from. I know it's going to change, but the government plays a big role in being able to bring those folks in and providing the subsidies that are needed to get rid of those food deserts and things like that. So it's really a collaborative effort in making sure that that community is open.
I agree with you. There's, which one do you want to speak first? So, before I pass it over, I do know the challenges in bringing grocers, right? Because they have to, the deal has to make sense for them. And while tax abatements and things of that nature are helpful, I spent 10 years advocating to get a grocery store in a particular ward in DC that had never had a grocery store ever. And it took a lot of advocacy, not only from the government, but from the development partner to get that grocer there, because grocery stores are expensive to run, and they're just concerned about their ability. And unfortunately, we have to be mindful of the fact that if that grocery store closes, it'll take another 30 years to convince another grocer to come. And so it does have to be very collaborative, not only from the government, but from the development partner to get that grocer there. And I'll give it back to Eddie.
Yes, piggyback off of this, what Calvin mentioned, the programming of the retail spaces, commercial spaces, is very important. Making sure that the developer is engaging not only the government from a municipal standpoint as it relates to the incentives that they can offer, but also working with, we call them in Atlanta, neighborhood planning units, where they represent the constituency within the area that you're developing in. And so you want to hear what they need, what they want, what are the ancillary services that they're looking for within their community. What is, well, we've had an opportunity to talk to like the YMCAs of the world and partner with them, make sure on some of our developments they can have a presence there. Because you have to remember, you're not just servicing just the adults that live there. And depending on whether those adults fall under family or they fall under senior, again, let's not forget that population that is very active, and also the children, all right? The children may be the children, of the families that live there, but they can also be the grandchildren of the seniors that live there, whether the grandchildren are raising them or they're babysitting, extended babysitting on the weekend. Like, we just forget to go pick them up from grandma, okay? Because we plan convenient, I couldn't make it, kind of situation. So the programming of the commercial space is important. And I'll take it to another level. with affordable housing today, I really believe in order for affordable housing, whether you're dealing with the big A or the small A, for those who are very low income all the way to about 140% of the area median income, really needs to be developed based on a mixed income and mixed use concept. Mixed income and mixed use. The parent that lives there, whether it's the father, single mother, or a young married couple that fall under very low income, with a child should be able to live next to somebody who's a young doctor, is in residency, not making any money yet, but they're neighbors. And that kid can see that doctor going to work with his or her white coat on and understand, wow, I'd love to be like that. It's the mixed income concept. And when you have mixed income, when you look at the span of that income range I just gave you, it also correlates to the necessary services that are needed either within the community or around the community. So therefore, the elimination of food deserts, but also all the other services that you can walk to, okay, and have access to, whether they're within your building, because there are amenities within your building that only the people that live there should have access to, like your gyms and things like that. But having access to, the UPS store, because you operate your business out of your home and you can just walk down the street and take care of whatever courier needs or printing needs that you have, or same thing as your insurance company, or going to the cleaners or going to the ice cream store. All of those are very important when you're dealing with affordable housing. So the days of just building a building that has 100% affordability with no services, no amenities, all you're doing is delaying the inevitable of a project. Not the project that that related to the development, but the projects that we all, back in the day that have been, demolished because it's not a sustainable, concept.
Concentrated poverty.
It's concentrated poverty. You could give them the Taj Mahal. Eventually, the ownership's going to change hands. And if it's an ownership that's just focused on just bottom line returns, which is okay. I understand you make an investment, you need to make money. But if they're not into the social side, then it's a matter of a time before that property goes under.
Roosevelt, I'll let you respond to that as well.
It's really about collaboration, right? None of this happens if you don't have a developer who cares, if you don't have attorneys and other gatekeepers and influencers of transactions who care. Now, I do want to tip my hat off to attorney Calvin Sauter, who actually, in my ascension in the legal ranks, was really one of the first attorneys who I was able to identify as someone who cared about the community, cared about the way the community was developing, and really influences other real estate development professionals to start thinking about development in a different way. So yes, you need municipalities, yes, you need developers, but you also need individuals who are influencing the deals to also care.
And I saw you have a question. Go ahead, sir.
Back to your point, Eddie, about the mixed amenities and mixed income. Can you talk a little bit more about that concept and how that helps you get to the affordability piece? Like when we put schools into mixed-use buildings, whether it be charter schools or things like that, or Head Start programs, the wraparound services, and how those deals can help with the financing of the larger deal, right? Because if you have a large institution that's taking a lease, or the government that's coming in and taking a lease, how does that affect you being able to get to that big A, right, in overall healthy development?
Yes, it's relatively simple. It's a simple math, arithmetic. You want to build great housing, okay, but you want it at an affordable price. We all know that construction pricing has been one of the major challenges, throughout the country. We see it in our personal home purchases, our personal investments, or even building out the basement that we were trying to rebuild for a long time. The shocking price of the pool that you want to put in the backyard. You're like, oh no, baby, it's gonna be another 2 years. Okay, right? We're gonna get a new pool from Walmart. It's just gonna be a little bit larger, and then before we get an in-ground pool. Okay, so. At the end of the day, to build a beautiful property with all these amenities, but also charge lower rent, but be subject to the market rate insurance prices and the market rate taxes, that doesn't pencil out. It's just really simple. It doesn't pencil out to have affordable rents to make that happen. You can't go buy a $500,000, $600,000, $1 million home and not have enough income to pay the mortgage. It's not going to work. First of all, you won't get financed, so you're not going to get the house. And if your income drops and you can't pay it, it's not on your priority of payments, then you will lose your house. So going into responding to Calvin's question is that having a mixed-use development also creates opportunity where you can have some market rate income on the additional land, okay, or additional space that you build out, whether it's under the building where you can condominiumize that space and have now real retail space or commercial space, commercial office, true operators that are able to pay the rent that is market rent in that area. A lot of times government will give you certain subsidies for small businesses, local small business enterprises, where you could actually reduce their rent anywhere from 10 to 20% of what the actual rent is. So if I'm the guy that has this amazing barbecue, okay, recipe, and I want to finally have my own storefront, and I fall under local small business enterprise, but at the same time, Anitra has her law firm, but we're going to charge her actual rent. We might charge a little bit higher, okay? And definitely Roosevelt, we're charging him a lot of rent, okay? And we want a 10-year lease with his personal guarantees on it, all right? But so with the barbecue guy, I actually have an opportunity to participate in this commercial opportunity within this community and come in and have my rent, have an advantage where I'm getting my rent. I have a lot smaller space also because I don't need that much space. It's not a dine-in. It's like mostly takeout. So I have a shotgun space and I'm paying about anywhere from 10 to 20% less in rent. And that helps us as a developer for providing those set-aside commercial spaces to actually tap into certain, funding that's available, to help stimulate projects like mixed-use projects. Having just your regular outside parcels where you can bring in a charter school, where you can bring in maybe a bank that's looking to do community reinvestment, and they want presence in that community, but they want to have their own storefront. They can pay market rent. They should pay more than market rent because they're getting all the deposits in this area. So, but at the same time, it won't affect my ability as a developer to address that big A in affordability for those who are very low to low income. And so they can actually participate and enjoy affordably priced housing in this whole ecosystem that is a mixed use in a mixed income environment. But a lot of times developers just don't know where the tools are to help them bridge these gaps. And so you see a lot of singular developments that are done without any of the amenities.
So, okay. I think we have about 6 minutes left, and I'll start with Wendy.
Thank you. Wendy Ellis I'm the director of the Equity Institute at George Washington University. And both of you are touching on some important parts of my work.
Can we?
Que yo hablo español.
Oh.
So she needs the mic so that
translate.
Okay, I'll stand up here then.
Go ahead. Thank you.
When you talk about public-private partnership, Yes, there's the working with municipalities, but I think the most important solution partner in this is the community. And so my work that I do in actually one of the largest devastated areas of the urban renewal projects, where more than 25,000 Black families were displaced, and now it's become prime real estate. And many of the legacy residents that have been able to stay are getting pushed out. They want to fight to refashion the neighborhood so that they can stay, but that others can come back. What we're finding is that local leaders agree with that, but feel beholden to developers who don't necessarily see the same vision of being able to, of what you've articulated. So how can we chip down and create a language that does incentivize developers to see the win-win that you just described?
First, thank you for your question. It takes courage, right? At the end of the day, if you look at the situation you just described, it's the money is saying one thing and feels one way. The policymakers are at the table, and the community is vocalizing its desire. So the policymakers need to hear the desire of the community and be courageous enough to articulate that to the developers and say, this is how we'd like this to happen, and work to a solution, work towards a solution that allows for everyone to win. At the end of the day, conscious capitalism is real. No one is saying you can't make money. No one is saying to make less money. What folks are asking is to be creative about getting to your bottom line.
Exactly. I agree with you, Roosevelt. And to add to that, it's, again, the policymakers, your politicians. The community has to make sure that they're in sync with them. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what my disposition is, what my vision is as a developer. I still have to go through an approval process. Zoning, entitlement, my plans have to be approved. You got to go through a process. I don't care what municipality it is. Some are a little bit more arduous than others. Nonetheless, there is a process that is uniform throughout our 50 states, all right? And so therefore, if the community is not engaged with the politicians that they've elected, that represent them, then guess what? You have developers that are going to just do whatever they want to do. And now you're, after the fact, complaining about what was missing. And so, therefore, it is important that, as a community, that you're electing, the right politicians that represent your needs. And it's not by popularity or by pedigree. All right? Number two, stay involved. Go to these meetings, these city hall meetings, or commissioner meetings. Talk to the other commissioners or the other council folks that may be adjacent to your zone. All right, because they also, have vested interests as far as how your area can impact their area. But as developers, that's where it starts. We don't start anything without engaging the community and the leadership, first and foremost, before we move forward. Yes, Danielle?
Good morning. Good morning. To that point, what are the things that the community need to ask or know about to be able to really be able to partner and influence? Because we're really talking zones, politicians, and developers, but if the community doesn't know what they don't know and don't know what to ask, because I can tell you, having property in multiple cities, especially New York City, where you have to deal with the community boards, what are the things that the community needs to ask or know about to be able to influence those things? But because it seems like they don't have the ability to influence, it's between the developer and the politicians, and they're just there.
It's a great question, Danielle. The community actually does have leverage. They have more leverage than they think they do. Okay? They have more leverage than even the politician, because there hasn't been a deal throughout my career, 33 years that I've done, that deals with affordability, where there's not a gap, where we don't need some kind of relief, whether it's a variance on parking, on setbacks, on height, on zoning density, you name it, okay? Even just going through a normal, not even speedy process to get your building permits, okay? I can go down a list of things. Every time I ask for something, or a developer asks for certain things in order to render that project to be financially feasible, it automatically gives the community leverage. Without those things, the project doesn't work. That's why we're asking for them. So therefore, if this is, we could trade here. If this is what you want in order for you to be successful at this project, whether you care about the community or not, let's be real about it, okay? Well, this is what we want in return. And if you do care about the community, then that's just, icing on the cake, cherry on top situation. And we'd love to have you as a neighbor within our community for a long period of time and help reshape our whole community and bring other developers, behind you that will do similar successful projects there. So the community really has a lot more leverage and say than they know, but they have to be engaged. You can't see these zoning, these meetings, these city hall meetings that are advertised throughout your community. They put them out at least 14 days, 21 days before the meeting. You pass by it, you see the date, it's written in black and white, okay? And you don't attend, or you don't have somebody to attend, or even a neighbor who's available to say, look, can you go and hear what's going on? Can you voice this on our behalf if you don't have a neighborhood planning unit in place?
I would respectfully disagree. The community does have a tremendous amount of leverage. If your politicians are not acting in your best interest, vote them out. Plain and simple. There is no magic bullet. But in order to do that, to Eddie's point, you have to participate. I've had the opportunity to do real estate across the country and around the world. And in some of these jurisdictions, you have people winning elections with 7% voter turnout, 6% voter turnout. That's embarrassing, and that's ripe for abuse, for underdevelopment and underinvestment, because now you don't have people sitting in those seats who you've sat down in your living room, in your church, in your barbershop, or wherever, to communicate what your interests are, who have committed to you that they also care about those things. So there's a tremendous amount of leverage. So that's one. Two, everyone right now has a supercomputer in their hand or in their pocket. So this business about not knowing what to ask for me, falls on deaf ears. There's nothing presently in human history that you want to know about that right now you can't find out about. So if your child is suffering from autism, and a bunch of children in the neighborhood are suffering from autism or asthma, right? What causes asthma? Well, we don't have any trees in this neighborhood. Councilman so-and-so, Councilwoman so-and-so, State Senator X. Can we talk about changing the state master plan or the local master plan to mandate trees being planted? So it's informing yourself before you can go inform a politician or developer about what you want.
Hi, I'm sorry, I had a couple questions, but I'm going to do this. I want to piggyback off this last question. In light of this, what vehicles do we have, practical vehicles do we have to educate the community about their said leverage? Because yes, what you said is absolutely true. Yes, what you said is absolutely true. But I am an educator at a local community college, and let me tell you, the community does not know what they do not know. They do not know what the zoning signs mean. They don't know which questions to ask. They don't know that if they vote, this may happen, because there's this idea that so many bad things are happening that they don't have control over. They don't understand the power of the political process. So we are a very educated group. And so we tend to forget that the most vulnerable really don't know. And it's hard to wrap your head around unless you're actually in it. They really don't know. Yes, they have their phones, but they don't even know what to look up or even how to use it or know what apps to, It's amazing what I see in the classroom.
I just understood. And so in the essence of time, I just want to allow both of our panelists to respond to you quickly.
So I'm going to punt that back to the individual. No one is coming to save anybody in this room. So you don't know, you're ignorant, whatever. Figure it out. Figure it out. That's one. Two, become civically engaged. In the city of Newark, Mayor Raz Baraka has instituted a men's meeting and a women's meeting now, which is a civic engagement opportunity where development is discussed, the city hall process, the municipal process, legislative process, and is shared in a way that's accessible and digestible. Are you showing up to those meetings to know what a pilot agreement is? Are you showing up to those meetings to understand what an abatement is? Are you showing up to those meetings to understand that at the end of every city council or every zoning meeting, there's a portion where public comment happens, where you could come voice your displeasure about bodegas let's not pick on bodegas. About poor quality food establishments, whatever they're called, right? Are you participating in that? If the answer to those questions is no, then we're not really having a discussion, right? It's a waste of time. Your ignorance is keeping you from moving forward and is keeping the community from moving forward. So show up to a meeting, hear something, ask a question, get an answer, and ask more questions.
And quickly, if you want to.
Yes. Everybody has a responsibility to educate themselves. These are not topics related to children, topics related to adults. If you don't know, then you need to find out. It's no different than the law. If you don't know the law, you break it, you're still not, they're not going to waive the punishment. And so here, everybody should have somebody within your community that you're tied to, even if you don't have the access, you don't know how to access, but at least know somebody that is in the know to keep you apprised of what's happening in your community.
And very quickly, I know we are out of time, but I do want to raise one final question. So what is our call to action? I'll start with you, Roosevelt.
Execution. We have everything we need right now to change the communities that folks in this room are from, or that folks in this room live in or care about. Execute.
One word: educate.
I'm going to add unify. Thank you so much for attending this panel. We appreciate you so much. This was very enlightening, and we loved the questions, and we loved being on the hot seat. So thank you so much. Appreciate you.